What's up with it? You tuned in to another episode of Everything Boxing. I don't watch reality TV. I watch boxing. There you go talking that boxing again. And y'all know how I do. You know, I ain't got to tell you. When you come in the building, put in your name. Let me know where you coming from. What's up with it? Like I said, when you drop in the building, let me know you in the building. You know, state your name. Let me know where you coming from. And hit the like button when you enter the building. Wayne Jr., what's good? Leonard Ellaby's nose, what's good with it? Salute to you. Mr. Rez J2 off in the building. What's good with it, fam? Yeah, we gonna cook on this Errol Spence and Danny Garcia situation today. Cause you know, Danny, he been having a lot to say. Danny Garcia been having a lot to say. So we gonna cook on that whole situation today. And like I said, when you come in the building, before we get the show started, hit the like button, you know, so when you drop in the building. Larry Foster, what's good coming in from that South Carolina? What's good with it, my dude? Daryl Ford, what's happening with it, homie? Coming in from that Tuck Town. Silver 2011 off in the building. What's good with you? I was just watching that. That old press conference with Paulie Malignaggi and Adrian Brunner. Man, AB was the shit back then. AB was funny. He's still funny, but AB was extra funny back then. And he had Paulie Malignaggi hot. Quit talking about my side piece. Why are you bragging about my side piece? Why are you bragging about my side piece? Hey, Paulie Malignaggi was hot up there. When AB called Paulie's girlfriend on the phone, man, that shit, AB did some of the most epic shit back then. Ain't nobody ever gonna top that shit. The shit that AB was doing in press conferences and, you know, leading up to fights, nobody gonna ever top that. Yeah, Silver 2011. Yeah, Danny Garcia, he real confident. We gonna get into that. We gonna talk about all of that. Quit talking about my side piece. Why you bragging about my side piece? Look, bro, why you bragging on my side piece, bro? Hey, he had Paulie Malignaggi hot as fuck. That boy was mad as hell. Okay, Mr. Rez J, yeah, when I get all my new merch in and shit, I'm gonna let everybody know, and I got you. And y'all share this to your boxing groups too. You know, when you come in, hit the like button. If you in boxing groups, you know, share this to your boxing groups too. Yeah, man, that shit was hella funny. AB used to be acting a fool. He had Polly Malignaggi on suicide watch. Could you just come on, bro? Quit talking about my side piece, bro. Why you diss my side piece, bro? Why you bragging about my side piece? Kwame Esop in the building. What's good with it? What's up with it, King? Okay, yeah. I got all y'all on the merchandise. Like I said, when I got it come in, because I got a whole ladies apparel clothing line I'm working on. It's all athletic, high, top quality stuff I'm working on. So yeah, so like I said, everything will be, done soon. I just didn't really want to put everything out before because that pandemic and everything happened. And like I said, we're gonna get the show started. Just giving more people a chance to know that I'm on, because they always like to come in the show late and say that they didn't know I was on. So but we gonna get it started real soon here. Mr. Finesse, what's good? Salute to you, family. So whatever, when I'm not gonna wait no longer. You come in the building, you come in late, you in late. Cassandra Mason, what's good with it? She say, Mr. Everything Boxing. Cincinnati checking in. Just got done watching the Gary Russell Jr. video, she said, and he said he want all the smoke with Bud. Yeah, and since you in here from Cincinnati, all I gotta ask you is, what you bringing about my side piece? Quit bringing about my side piece. We was talking about, I was just getting on, I was talking about when AB had that press conference with Polly Malignaggi and had Polly pissed off as hell when he called Polly's girlfriend on the phone. I was just watching that shit the other night. I mean, I was dying laughing. Sal Hamilton off in the building. What's good with it? So, anyway, Danny Garcia and Errol Spence Jr. That, this is the fight that, everybody gonna be looking forward to. And to tell you the truth, I think this is gonna be a hell of a fight. Todd Swindle off in the building. I see you. Danny Garcia and Errol Spence Jr. is gonna be a real dog fight. Y'all already know who I got in here. I don't think nobody in the welterweight division is fucking with Errol Spence, right? Period. That's just my opinion. But Danny Garcia, he had a lot to say recently. Danny Garcia has always had a lot to say when it's come to Errol Spence. And the thing to me, I don't know if Errol Spence don't ever hear Danny Garcia. He just don't watch what he said. He don't like go and watch any of what Danny Garcia says, or he just don't care to respond on it, because I always notice that Errol, he'll respond with everybody else, but he don't really say too much about Danny. He always give Danny his respect, and he always really give Danny high praise and talk good about Danny Garcia. But every time you hear Danny Garcia talk about Errol Spence, it's the opposite, and it's been that way. It's been that way for years now. That's why I kind of wonder, do Errol actually hear the shit that Danny Garcia be saying about him? Because Danny Garcia always downplays the level of fighter that Errol Spence is, and he's been doing this for years. even when Errol was up and coming, calling out Danny Garcia was like, who is he? Trying to act like he's a nobody. Let me see. Dominique Reeks off in the building, coming in from that Colchester, England. What's good? Salute to you all the way over there from England. What's your point? Fact says, peace and blessings. He says, he said, I think Errol is about to make an example out of Danny, especially if he does strength and conditioning. Yeah. So this is what I want to say. Danny Garcia, he recently did an interview and he talked about a lot, he talked about a lot. He says that, he talks about his losses. Well, he talked about his losses, first of all, to Thurman and Porter. He said that, at World Combat Sports, what's good with it? And subscribe to my man, World Combat Sports. World Combat Sports. Make sure y'all go subscribe to him if you're not already subscribed. Mr. Finesse, he says this is going to be a good fight. Errol is coming back in the best fight since quarantine. Yeah, it is. Now, everybody is trying to act like Danny Garcia is a motherfucking chump. But Danny Garcia is no pushover. You know what I'm saying? If you go back and watch the Sean Porter fight, he actually gave Sean Porter a hell of a fight. And he hit Sean Porter with some heat. He would bring some heat on Sean Porter. Me personally, a lot of people think that the fight between him and Thurman was close. I don't really think that fight was close. I think Thurman just basically, outboxed him from, I think Thurman won that fight, by a pretty large margin. That's my opinion. But Danny said he talked about those losses, and he said that it was very hard for him to get over those two losses. He said that he's still KG Alexander, my boy, off in the building. He said that he still thinks about those losses every day. He says that at one point, he said he was kind of like fucked up about those losses. He said he couldn't, he said he could not get over. He said especially the Keith Thurman one. He said he just could never get over that shit for the longest time. But he says after that, he says during those fights, he says that was kind of a time in his career that he wasn't feeling boxing like that. He says he didn't like training. He says he didn't take boxing. It wasn't fun to him no more. He says that his heart wasn't in it really no more. He was kind of laid back and he was, he just wasn't all in. This is what Danny Garcia is saying. He says at that point in time, he says the fight with Brandon Rios and then the two fights before that he had with Sean Porter and Keith Thurman before that. He says that he wasn't taking training that serious. He said because he just wasn't, he wasn't, his mind frame wasn't in boxing. He says at that point in time, he wasn't really in love with the sport and training and all that no more. So this is what he's saying. And I'm just telling y'all what Danny Garcia is saying, right? And then I'll give y'all my take on it, right? So he says that, since then, he said his past few fights, I think with Granados and Red Catch, he says that, since then, he said he took a long layoff. He said he came back and he says that he been rejuvenated. He said you could tell by the way that he fought in his last two fights against Granados, him actually being the first fighter to actually stop Granados. He's the first fighter to ever come in and stop Granados. And then he went in and, he destroyed Ivan Redcatch, right? Ivan Redcatch, he was a good tune-up fight. I'll say Ivan Redcatch had walked through Devin Alexander, or was it Lamont? Yeah, it was Devin Alexander. Ivan Redcatch had walked through Devin Alexander, and put him out, right? So basically, he's saying now that he is, back to the Danny Garcia that everybody want to see. He said everybody had been wanting to see that Danny Garcia that fought Lucas Matisse, that Danny Garcia that fought Amir Khan, that Danny Garcia, the young Danny Garcia in the 140-pound division. He said, he got a newfound love for boxing. He's back. He says that, you know, that he's loving training again. He love everything to do with it. So basically he's saying that, you know, everybody gonna see the old Danny Garcia, the Danny Garcia that everybody grew to love or hate, you know, when he was up and coming, you know, putting in work, really putting in work, right? So he goes on to talk about, he goes on to talk about a lot of things. Before I even get into the Errol Spence, what he said about Errol Spence, I'm going to just give y'all, you know, let y'all know some other things that Danny Garcia was talking about. Danny Garcia, he actually said that him and Mikey Garcia were supposed to fight each other. He said back last year on August 31st, him and Mikey Garcia were supposed to fight each other. He said that he signed his portion of the contract. This is what Danny Garcia is saying, right? He said that he signed his portion of the contract to fight Mikey Garcia, right? He says that other than that, he don't know what happened. He said, obviously, Mikey Garcia, he didn't say Mikey Garcia wouldn't sign the contract or didn't sign the contract, but basically, if you read in between the lines, he said, I signed my portion of the contract. We were supposed to fight August 31st of last year. He was like, and then I don't know what happened on Mikey Garcia's end. He said, that's all I could tell you. That we were supposed to fight. Mikey Garcia didn't go through with it on his end or whatever. I don't know what happened. So that would have been a hell of a fight, you know. So he talked about a lot, but let's just go ahead and dive in to what he said about Errol Spence. And hit my like button, because I see y'all in here, but y'all ain't hitting my like button. Hit the like button, and if you in the building, subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Everything Boxing and Sports on YouTube, if you're not already subscribed. But make sure you hit the like button. But anyway, let's dive in what he said about Errol Spence and what he said in the past about Errol Spence. Because in the past, he's always talked about how Errol Spence, he knows that Errol Spence is nothing special about him. Kind of actually talking about like Errol Spence is a straight up and down fighter. You know, he talks about Errol Spence like he doesn't have no special skills. He's nothing special about Errol Spence. He don't see nothing special about him. And, you know, he kind of talks about Errol Spence, how a lot of people see Danny Garcia as. You know, a lot of people see Danny Garcia as a straight up and down fighter. Well, he talks like he sees Errol Spence as that straight up and down fighter. Now, this is the thing, though, right? He says that because he was asked a question, do he think that Errol Spence this is the best time for him to fight Errol Spence right now? And he said, yeah. He said, of course. He said, but I've always thought I could beat Errol Spence. He said, I always thought it was the best time. He said, I never thought that Errol Spence could beat me at all. He said, and then he said, especially I saw a lot of things in the Mikey Garcia fight. And then I saw more things in the Sean Porter fight. He said right after that, he said, and then I knew that he didn't have no chance of beating me, Errol Spence, right? So let's rewind a bit, right? Because he's on here. Denise Ward, what's good with it, Queen? I see you. Lucas McCain off in the building. What's good? He says, right, that he's always thought that he's always known that he could beat Errol Spence. Always, right? The time of him fighting and beating Errol Spence, this is what he said, has always been the right time when it comes to Errol Spence. Now, let's go ahead and rewind a little bit, right? Because, you know, all I can do is listen to what the man say. And then, you know, I don't have the best memory in the world. But, you know, I don't got Alzheimer's or nothing like that. And so let's go ahead and rewind back in time, right? Let's go ahead and go back to Errol Spence calling him out for years, right? And Danny Garcia was always quick to say, G Mays, what's good with it? Jamaican off in the building, what's good? Daniel Parr off in the building, what's good, right? Danny Garcia was always quick to say, first, when Errol Spence began to call him back way back in like 2015, he was like, oh, who is he? What has he done? He's not on my level, shit like that, right? Then when Errol Spence got up there, right? Errol Spence was still calling him out like, what's up? I want to fight Danny. Danny was like, oh, I don't what has he done? The man got a belt. What you mean what he done? He in your weight division. He one of the top fighters in your weight division, and he hold the IBF strap, right? So Danny was still refusing to fight him. And if you go back, right, 2018? I think it was 2018. It could have been. Danny Garcia did an interview, right? And they asked specifically because Errol Spence was still on Danny Garcia's head. And they asked him, and I'll never forget it. They asked him about fighting Errol Spence. And Danny Garcia said, if you want me to fight Errol Spence, I'm not fighting him, but if you want me to fight him, pay me 10 mil, right? And you got to think, this is at a point of time, right, when none of these fighters had been on pay-per-view yet, and none of these fighters were making 10 mil. This is before Errol Spence had fought Mikey Garcia, right? So at this point in time, none of these fighters had made, and you can go look it up, right? It's still, the video's still on there. None of these fighters at the time had made nowhere close to 10 mil. None of these fighters had been on pay-per-view yet, right? Errol Spence hadn't even got big bread like that. The biggest fight at that point in time that Errol Spence had gotten was the Kell Brook fight. And maybe he did get paid a lot for the Lamont Peterson fight, but it wasn't no 10 mil. And we all know that Danny Garcia hadn't made no 10 mil at that point in time either himself. So he says, well, if you want me to fight Errol Spence, okay, cool. Pay me 10 mil and I'll fight him. Now, does that sound like, and he's on the same street side as you, right? It's no pandemic. So if anybody want to come in here and try to say, oh, well, Keith Thurman asked Terence Crawford, this is not the same situation, right? Not the same situation. At that point in time, none of them had been on pay-per-view. None of them had made 10 mil. And that's just what it is, At that point in time, 10 million was an offer that was delusional at that point in time because none of them was making nowhere near that at that point in time, right? So he says the only way that he would get in the ring, he said, well, pay me 10 mil, right? So does that sound like somebody that has always been confident and always thought that he could beat Errol Spence? No, absolutely not. Lion K. McElroy off in the building. What's good? Yeah, absolutely not. So Danny Garcia, I'm here to tell y'all that Danny Garcia is full of shit. And he's lying. He's lying to his daddy. He lied to his fans. And he lied to himself. Because the truth is, Danny Garcia was ducking Errol Spence for years because he did not feel confident that he could beat Errol Spence. Errol Spence is the one man that he really, really did not want to fight. And even to tell you the truth, if you want to keep it real, Danny Garcia ducked Sean Porter for years. I remember me and Kenny Porter having a conversation and Sean Porter and Kenny Porter was ducking Errol Spence. And this is just the truth. I'll go back to, let me see, I think it was either 2016 or 2017, somewhere. It was either one of them years, right? And I don't think Errol Spence didn't have the IBF title yet, right? And me and Kenny Porter, we talking, me and Kenny Porter chopping it up at an event. And Kenny Porter is like, shit, we still chasing Danny Garcia. We want the Danny Garcia fight, but he don't want to fight us. This is way back then. They had been chasing. And then look how, this is 2016, and look how long it took them to get a Danny Garcia fight, right? They was chasing Danny Garcia for years because Danny Garcia didn't even want to fight Sean Porter. And then it's funny because I told Kenny, and Kenny, I like Kenny. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people don't like Kenny Porter. I fuck with Kenny. But this is just the truth. I said, Kenny, well, what about Errol Spence? You know what I'm saying? What about Errol Spence? What about a fight with him? He want to fight Sean. Hey, Kenny act like he didn't hear me. Kenny switched the subject around. So at that point in time, all of them dudes was ducking Errol Spence. Let's just keep it 100. You know what I'm saying? And especially Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia did not get confident, right? Danny Garcia told a whole lot of lie, but then he mixed in a lot of some truth in it. Now, when Danny Garcia started telling the truth is when he said, when he started talking about after Errol Spence fought Mikey Garcia, right? And then after Errol Spence fought Sean Porter, right? So Danny Garcia is basically saying, you know, in so many words, what he was saying is, especially after I saw him fight Mikey Garcia, I seen some things in him. He said, then when I seen him fight Sean Porter, I seen more things in him, and I knew I could beat him. So now, at that point in time, yeah, DSG did get confident that he knew he could beat Errol Spence, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why Danny Garcia finally got confident after he saw Errol Spence beat Sean Porter, right? He got confident because that's 2 fights in a row that he was able to see Errol Spence, and he didn't see the same Errol Spence that had fought Kell Brook, that had fought Lamont Peterson, that had fought Leonard Bondu, that had fought Chris Algieri, right? He didn't see the same Errol Spence in the ring, and he didn't see the same Errol Spence in the physical form. You know what I mean? You can just go back and see and look at we all, you know what I'm saying, whether you want to admit it or not, if you like Errol Spence, if you hate him, if you love him, whatever it is, we didn't see the same physique. Errol Spence didn't have the same body build, and he was not the same fighter that he was in the past. So Danny Garcia, being a fighter that was afraid, or no, I don't want to say afraid, you know what I'm saying? Because these fighters, they all fight, but being a fighter that wasn't confident that he could beat Errol Spence Jr., right? Of course, that's a fighter that he's going to be looking closely at. That's his competition. And at the point in time, all of them guys in the 147-pound weight division, whether they would admit it or not, they knew that Errol Spence Jr. was the toughest competition and their highest competition in their weight division. And they knew somehow one day that they was going to have to face him. So, of course, Danny Garcia was going to be watching Errol Spence's every move very closely, right? Very closely. And, of course, Danny Garcia knows things that's going on with Errol Spence behind the scenes, and then he sees what's going on in the ring. Even though that Errol Spence beat all these guys, you know what I'm saying? Whatever you want to say about him, he still went in the ring, and none of these dudes that he been in the ring with could fuck with him, right? Whether he was the same Errol Spence or whether he wasn't. But obviously, he wasn't the same. He's even came out and he said that he wasn't the same, right? So that's what Danny Garcia saw. When Danny Garcia saw that, and then when he saw Errol Spence in the after the in the Sean Porter fight, Danny Garcia sat back and he like, this dude, hold on. Look at his body. He ain't built like he was. He's showing in the ring that he's not as strong as he was, right? When I was ducking him all, oh yeah, I'll fight him now. What's up with it? What's up? That's why you saw him immediately, right? Immediately after the Sean Porter fight, who got in the ring? Danny Garcia. Immediately, Danny Garcia hopped in there and he wanted all the smoke because Danny Garcia, he was gaining confidence. He was already he started gaining confidence, you know, like, oh, well, if he didn't knock out Mikey Garcia, he can't knock me out. So, I mean, shit, what's the worst thing I could do if I get in the ring with him, right? Then he started building more confidence over time, seeing Errol Spence, enjoying the fruits of his labors, Then after the Sean Porter fight, his head just grew big, like, oh, shit, I think I can beat him. Let me hop in the ring and let me let him know that now, after 4 or 5 years, now I want to smoke. Plus, I ain't got nothing to lose. I don't think he the same fighter. Plus, I get a big, huge payday, and he got a belt that I want. He got the belt that I lost. So why not fight him? So, Danny Garcia is a lot of shit that he say is full of shit. You know what I'm saying? He's full of shit because he's lying. He's telling flat out lies when he says that he's always known that he can beat Errol Spence. It's a lie. It's just not the truth. Now, do he think he can beat Errol Spence now? I think he is confident that he could beat Errol Spence. And I'm going to tell y'all right now that, for one thing, I don't think that he could beat Errol Spence, right? Right? And anybody that think that he could beat Errol Spence, holler at me. We could put some bread on him. But I'm going to tell y'all now, for anybody that's doubting Danny Garcia, don't do it. Because Danny Garcia is going to train like a fucking animal, and he's going to come in there in November. Danny Garcia, and I see a lot of people saying he's limited, right? But the skills that he does, what he does and what he can do, he does them great, right? Even though he's limited, but the things that he can do, he does them great. So I'm going to tell y'all right now, don't sleep on Danny Garcia and think that he just going to come in there and lay down, right? He's coming in there to fight. He knows that Errol Spence is going to be the toughest fight in his career, whether he want to admit it to you or not, right? He knows that he's got to come in there and he has to be at his physical best. He has to be at his peak when he goes in there against Errol Spence. He knows that, just like when you see certain basketball teams, everybody gets up to play certain teams, right? Everybody gets up to fight certain fighters. You know what I'm saying? Some fighters, you can't really get up like that and perform your best because they just don't bring that out of you. He knows that he has to be at his best. So don't think that Danny Garcia just gonna go in there and get walked through. It's going to be a hell of a fight. It's going to be a hell of a fight. I'm telling y'all right now. It's going to be a hell of a fight. Yeah, G May said Errol already in better shape than Danny. Oh, yeah, for sure. But that's another thing. A lot of people think that Errol Spence is gonna go in there and he not gonna be the same. I'm here to tell you, look for that nigga with the shag. If y'all don't know who the nigga with the shag is, go back and do your research on Errol Spence and find a video back when he had the shag. And I'm telling y'all, that's the nigga that y'all gonna get come November, right? You gonna get the nigga with the shag come November. So I'm telling you, you're gonna get, and come November, you about to see the best Danny Garcia, and you about to see the best Errol Spence Jr. Now, when you get the best of Danny Garcia and when you get the best of Errol Spence Jr., you know what you got? You got a hell of a fight, but you got one man that's just better all around. Errol Spence is just better than Danny Garcia all around, and that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? So Danny Garcia been talking a whole lot of shit, right? And he's saying that he's always known that he could beat Errol Spence ever since way back then. Well, voila, you about to get your wish because you're about to get the nigga with the shag. That's who you gonna get. You ain't finna get Big EJ to step in the ring. You gonna get the nigga with the shag come November. So you gonna get what you asked for. But it's gonna be a hell of a fight. I'm telling y'all. It's gonna be a hell of a fight. Let me and then he went on to say some more things, and I'm gonna get into that. But let me get through some of y'all comments. Daniel Parr says he got EJ in 9. Jamaicans say DSG is delusional. Danny Garcia, my boy KG Alexander off in the building. He said Danny a whole clown because he ain't see shit but a whole whooping in that Mikey fight. That's that shit that gets me. Like, what did y'all see in the Mikey fight? What could you have him seen in the Mikey fight but a whole 12-round shutout in the whooping, like my man KG said? Larry Foster says Danny would punish Mikey. You know what, Larry? I feel you. At first, I was like, nah, Mikey Garcia beat Danny Garcia. When that fight was supposed to happen, I was rolling with Danny Garcia. Mikey Garcia, right? But then I seen how Mikey Garcia performed in his last fight, right? And in his last fight, I seen how Mikey Garcia performed, right? And Mikey Garcia barely won that fight. Mikey Garcia did not look good once again at 147. A lot of people was praising him, talking about how he fucked up Jesse Vargas. That was a lie. Jesse Vargas gave Mikey Garcia hell. You know what I'm saying? That's just my opinion. Jesse Vargas was giving Mikey Garcia hell. And at that point in time, I realized that the 147-pound weight division is just too much for Mikey Garcia if he's talking about competing against guys like Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, Errol Spence, Sean Porter. Nah. So I do agree with you now. At first, if you had asked me around that time, I would have told you different. Let me see. Hold on. Let me get through y'all comments. Damn. Let me see. Lucas McCain says, yeah, he turned down the Bud fight too, got offered $5 million and a title shot, and he said no. Well, he didn't get offered $5 million. Bob Arum even admitted it. They only offered him $3 million to go over to ESPN and fight Bud. And I talked about that already, so I ain't gonna really get all into that because we gotta move along. But Jamaican says back then DSG was ducking smoke. He said DSG was ducking smoke by outpricing himself. Now he wants to fight because it's a lucrative payday. Yeah. He was known to be ducking smoke back then. Kwame Eats, and everybody hit my like button. All right, hit my like button. And if you're not subscribed to the channel on YouTube, go over to the YouTube channel, subscribe to Everything Boxing and Sports on YouTube. And if you want to support the channel, support the Cash App. It's scrolling right across the screen, and I appreciate it. Kwame East, my partner Kwame East says, I don't think Hunk so he too flat foot. He says he too flat footed for Mikey. If he don't stop Mikey, he loses. Oh, okay. I think he's talking to Robusky 1978 says Danny got robbed versus Sean Porter, but definitely lost to Keith Thurman. Well, I mean, you can't say that he got robbed versus Sean Porter. My take on those two fights, real quick, was I've always said that I thought that Keith Thurman clearly beat Danny Garcia. I don't think the fight was as close as a lot of people was trying to say. I think Keith Thurman coasted to a victory in that fight. He just, his boxing skills was on a different level than Danny Garcia's, right? Danny Garcia thought that he could just go in there and knock out Keith Thurman. And it showed that, he was very wrong. But in the Sean Porter fight, I thought the Sean Porter fight was much closer. I thought that Sean Porter did beat Danny Garcia. He did beat Danny Garcia. But I thought that Sean Porter, Danny Garcia was Sean Porter's one of his toughest fights. If y'all go back and look at that fight, that was a hard fight for Sean Porter. Danny Garcia was putting hands and feet on Sean Porter at times in that fight. Like he was landing some big shots, and I know he had to hurt Sean Porter at times in that fight. Even though Sean Porter, withstood it, he landed some big shots on Sean Porter in that fight. And that fight was not a easy fight for Sean Porter at all. And it was a closer fight than the Thurman fight, in my opinion. G May says Errol already. Oh, yeah, I read that one. Matthew Valentine off in the building. What's good? He says as soon as DSG gets punched in the face, it's over. Well, we can't say that. That's what I'm saying. A lot of people are really kind of like not giving DSG the respect that he deserved. You know what I'm saying? Even though I'm coming on here and telling you that he's full of shit, you still got to give him the respect that he deserved, because DSG has one, if not the best chin at 147 pounds. He has one of the best chins at the 147-pound weight division. We've seen DSG take big, huge shots and walk through them and eat them. To me, if you rating the best chins proven at 147 pounds, it's between Errol Spence and Danny Garcia. That's another reason this is going to be a great fight, because you got two, to me, in my opinion, you got two fighters that have the best chins in the whole division. Now, Sean Porter has a great chin too, but Sean Porter, we've seen him dropped. We've seen him drop. We see him get right back up every time he get dropped. So he still got a great chin. But These two guys, they ain't never been, they never touched the canvas. You feel me? They never touched the canvas. And they've got hit with some huge shots. I mean, go back in the Keith Thurman fight. Keith Thurman hit Danny Garcia so hard he made him spin around. But Danny Garcia ate that shit and kept fighting. So, you can't, I wouldn't in this fight, I wouldn't bet on Errol Spence stopping him. You know what I'm saying? And then people say, well, he'll stop him to the body. You just can't. Just like I told Kwame East a long time ago, when me and Kwame was going, we was agreeing on this fight, but me and Kwame were going back and forth because he was saying at that point in time that Errol Spence was going to stop Sean Porter. And I was in Kwame, if you in the building, if you still in the house, you remember when me and you was going back and forth on this. And I was telling Kwame, I said, you can't put that jacket on a fighter. You can't say a fighter's going to go in there and get knocked out if they've never been knocked out before or ever even been close to getting knocked out. You see what I'm saying? So you can't put that jacket on the fighter. Until you show me that you have a suspect or a weak chin, or you've been close to getting knocked out, I'm never going to come on here and say, oh, well, he going to knock him out. Oh, he's going to get knocked out by such a... Nah, you got to prove that. You got to show me that in your past fights. So I don't think that this fight is going to be a knockout. I don't think that Errol's going to knock him out, but I think that Spence is just going to beat him. I think he's going to beat him, unanimous decision victory, but it's going to be a slugfest. It's going to be a slugfest because you got two fighters that really ain't going to back down, right? We know how Danny Garcia fight. He wants to counterpunch you. He going to be right there in the pocket. He going to be throwing big hooks, and he's going to be throwing big shots. Errol Spence is going to get hit with some shit in this fight. Don't think that he's just going to come out and not get touched, right? Danny Garcia is going to get touched up throughout the fight. But it's going to be a hell of a fight. And the more that I talk about the fight, because y'all know I ain't really been talking about this fight because we still got some months until this fight happened. But the more I talk about it and think about it, the more excited I get about this fight because it's going to be a hell of a fight. So don't sleep on Danny Garcia and think that he just going to go in there and, look like shit. It's going to be a hell of a fight. Two styles make fights, and this makes a great style matchup. Cassandra Mason says, it's going to be a great fight. And she says, and I rock with Team Swift, but EJ will get the win. She says, not easily though. Yeah, you're right, Cassandra. And Cassandra know her boxing. Cassandra know her shit, right? Even though she love her some Triple G, and I can't stand Triple G, but I give Cassandra a pass on that. Stephen Post says Danny started too slow. Errol gonna pressure him and then outbox him. It's good that you said that, Stephen, because Danny acknowledged that. And let me get through some of the comments, and I'll actually touch on what Danny Garcia said about him. Starting slow in fights and not throwing enough punches. G Mays says that Blu-ray Errol. G Mays know what I'm talking about when I say that they gonna get that nigga with the shag. He know what I'm talking about, Yeah, Matthew Valentine, that nigga with the shag is back. Danny Williams says will be a repeat of Peterson fight with Spence. Nah, it's not. I'm telling y'all can't put that jacket on Danny Garcia and think that he just gonna fold like a lawn chair like that. Danny Garcia not gonna fold like that. Put some respect on that man's name. Ruboski 1978 say, bro, you a casual if you thought Mikey would beat Danny. I'm a casual. I didn't forgot more about boxing than you will ever know. I guarantee you that. At that point in time, when I said that Mikey Garcia, that the point in time when I thought that Mikey Garcia would beat Danny Garcia, that was a great matchup. They both counter punchers. Mikey Garcia got more overall skills than Danny Garcia. But, we hadn't really seen Mikey Garcia at the 147-pound weight division other than fighting Errol Spence. at that point in time. But now I know that Mikey Garcia wouldn't beat Danny Garcia because Mikey Garcia, to me, he barely got past Jesse Vargas. To me, really, I don't even really think he beat Jesse Vargas that clearly. That fight was very close to me. G. May says Errol hurt Porter, Danny didn't, and Porter said Errol hit harder. Well, this is what Porter said, G. Mays. Porter said that a lot of people say that Danny hits very hard, but he says that he don't know because he wouldn't get hit with that shit. I don't know how he said that he wouldn't get hit with that shit because you go back and watch that fight, Porter was getting hit with some shit in that fight. So I don't know. It just all depends. You know what I'm saying? You got different fighters that say different things. You got Keith Thurman that says that Danny Garcia hits the hardest out of any fighter that he ever been in the ring with. So who knows? You know, I ain't got hit by neither one of them and don't want to. Him, I don't want to get hit by Errol, Danny, or Porter. Ralph Estrada says, what's good with you? Ralph off in the building. He says, I'm a big Danny Garcia fan. He says, I knew he was going to be something special since his amateur days. He says, however, ain't nobody beating Spence at 147 or 154. He says, don't sleep on DSG, though. I feel you. I completely agree with everything you said, Ralph. Now, Todd Swindle says, the accident got all these boys' confidence. Yeah. You're right, Todd. But Danny Garcia, right? Danny Garcia, he talked about, that his training and his cardio hadn't been at the level that it should have been, right? He said that he wasn't putting that extra effort in the training because he just got sick of it. He said he didn't like training. He just wasn't, his head wasn't in the game, in the boxing game like that. So he says now he knows that his cardio got to be on a whole nother level. He says now he knows that he has to, his work rate has to be a lot higher. So he's promising that you're going to see a higher work rate and you're going to see this and that. But what I got to say is I like the confidence that Danny Garcia got in himself, how you got to believe in yourself, But at the end of the day, Danny Garcia is not an up-and-coming fighter. He's a veteran that we've been watching for, 10 years now, right? I've been watching for 10 years now, right? Ever since he first started his career, I was watching Danny Garcia. So at this point, we know what you are. Like, we know what we're going to get out of you. So a lot of fighters will come back and be like, yeah, it's this and that. It's because this and that. Like, I've seen you fight a whole lot of times. I know what you are. So I think that's more him trying to hype himself up and him telling himself what he thinks he got to do. But, we got to see how it translates when he gets in the ring that night. A lot of shit that he think that he want to do, he's not going to be able to do that in the ring with an Errol Spence. You ain't in the ring with Ivan Redcatch no more. Shit, Ivan Redcatch was getting his ass beat by Tank Davis, right? You ain't in the ring with a washed up old Brandon Rios. You're not in the ring with them no more, right? So a lot of the things that you talking about that you just wasn't doing because you wasn't training like that, your cardio wasn't at that level, you still not going to be able to do them when you get in the ring with Errol Spence. And that's just that's just the truth of the matter. That's the truth. Rocky Marciano says Gary Russell gonna get his ass crumbled. We're gonna talk about the Gary Russell situation too. Kwame E says, I don't believe we will get the best Errol Spence next. He says, I think we'll get a better version than we did against Porter and a very good version. He says, Errol needs a little more recovery and compound interest from staying disciplined out of the ring, and we will get that guy back. You got a big point. Because I hear what you're saying. You saying that now we're going to get a better version than we've got against, Mikey Garcia and Sean Porter. He's saying, but he still need more time to discipline himself and the more time training and recovery and all of that to get back to that level of the nigga with the shag. So I feel you. I feel you what you saying. You saying, you know, once basically what Kwame East is saying, he's saying that what he believes, correct me if I'm wrong, what you believe is that Errol Spence is going to look much better this fight. And then if he go on after this fight and keep up the same discipline and keep up the same training methods, you know, that he's doing coming into this fight, if he stay disciplined after this fight, then he's going to already had a fight in the book. And then we going to get that old nigga with the shag back. He said, but right now it's too soon. You know, could be. That's another reason why this fight is so exciting to you know, watch and anticipate, because we anticipating all of these different things. What Errol Spence are we gonna get? What Danny Garcia are we gonna get? Right? All of these things. That's why it's a great fight, and you know, it's a great stylistic matchup. If you really want to be 100 about it, it's probably a better stylistic matchup, a better action fight than a fight with Errol Spence and Bud Crawford would be. Stylistically, I'm not saying it's a better fight because who Bud Crawford is and who Errol Spence is, right? We know that that they at the top of the game in the 147-pound weight division. But as far as a style, this probably a better stylistic matchup. Kwame E says Thurman made him gunshot, but his chin is elite. Yeah, that's a fact. Stephen Pope says, I was at the DSG Porter fight. It was good. Oh, hell yeah. Salute to Stephen, man. That's a fight that I wish I could have been there. I didn't make that fight. I wish that was a hell of a fight. G May says, and since y'all talking robberies, Robert Guerrero got robbed by Danny. Did y'all forget? And he is southpaw with pressure. I remember G Mays. I gotta go back because that fight been a minute. That fight been, you know, it's been a minute since that fight. I thought that I did think that Lamont Peterson got robbed against Danny, but as far as the Guerrero fight, I thought that it was a very close fight. I think he cut Guerrero. I think Guerrero suffered a bad cut in that fight. But I gotta go back and watch that fight because, like I said, it's been a minute. I don't ever remember thinking that Danny Garcia lost that fight, but I remember it was a tough fight for Danny Garcia, and I do remember he cut Robert Guerrero. As far as Robert Guerrero getting robbed by Danny Garcia, I can't really. I got to go back and watch it to go that far. Kwame E says that's why I don't have EJ stopping him until I see what kind of shape he's in. If he's he says if he the nigga with the shag, he say yeah. It's crazy because that nigga with the shag, you got a point. He was stopping everybody and he was relentless. He wasn't gonna stop until he did stop you. That's the thing about him. Danny Williams says Spence gonna box him. He says it'll be a repeat of the Peterson fight. Nah, because Spence boxed Peterson and then he just put it on Peterson. It wasn't. Well, you got to think. Spence versus Peterson wasn't really no boxing technique. Like he just went in there and he just banged it out with Peterson. He was like, okay, if he gonna stand in front of me like that, well, I'm gonna show him, you know, who the boss is. And he just went in there and just walked through Peterson. You know, because remember, up until the Mikey Garcia fight, people were saying that Spence couldn't even box. I knew that was bullshit because, I mean, how could you say that he couldn't box? But a lot of people were saying that because he had been just basically, you know, bulldozing through everybody. You know, man down. Daniel Parr says, if EJ looks like he did when he fought Kell, Danny don't go 10 rounds. Hey, shit. I mean, I just can't put that jacket on Danny Garcia because he's never been stopped. He's never been, you know, he ain't never been stopped. He ain't never been in there with nobody like that nigga with the shag neither. So, you know, who knows? Todd Swindle says, I think the body work is gonna make Danny slower than he already is. Oh yeah, that's a fact. That's a fact, Todd. You know, EJ gonna put in work on that body. But when you go to the body, you leave yourself open for certain counters, right? And we all know that Danny Garcia is a master technician at counterpunching. That's one of Danny Garcia's best attributes. He's a great counterpuncher, and when he punch you, and he throwing everything hard, so it's gonna be it's gonna be interesting to see that. Kwame E says, if we get Blu-ray, Errol Danny gonna be depressed again. I don't know, man, about the whole Blu-ray situation, because I know Blu-ray say everything all good, but to me, and I don't want to speculate, but to me, it's something more to it than that. You know, why that man would just stop working with you. Like, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but what is it? You know what I'm saying? Why he, because we all seen the results that Blu-ray was giving him. So it's something why he don't want to work with Blu-ray no more, or why he just don't work with Blu-ray no more. What it is, I don't know. I guess them two, they only know. Maybe Kwame East, maybe you know what I'm saying? But that's a whole different subject for me to be talking about on this show, because that's their personal, that's between them and that. You know, I don't get into their personal stuff live on camera like that. Jay Cooley says EJ will fight Keith if he wins and don't get packed. He says fight Keith without a belt is bigger than Bud, because Bud not trying to do nothing to get EJ fight. And look like it right now. You right, Jay Cooley. Stephen T. Pope said, laugh miles. He said you a casual. Yeah, it's like that. See, that's the shit with me. Every time, I mean, you know my boxing knowledge, but you got a nerve enough to come on here and say I'm a casual. Like, come on now. Every time you say some shit that somebody don't agree with or don't like, that's their first thing. They can't think of nothing else. Oh, you're a casual. What the fuck you talking about? If I was a casual boxing fan, do you think I would be on here and be able to do what I do on here or talk about the shit I talk about if I was a casual boxing fan? Come on now. D-Lo 404 Boxing off in the building. Everybody go check out D-Lo 404 Boxing and subscribe to his channel. Let me see. KG says, if that Shag nigga with the 10-pack, he says, if that Shag nigga with the 10-pack back out, he says, back out, he says, these niggas in trouble. Yeah, if he come out, that nigga, that nigga with the Shag, with the 10-pack, like KG said, everybody in trouble. You know what I'm saying? He running over everybody, including Bud Crawford. Brandon House said, what's good with it, Brandon? I see you off in the building. He says, my guy Errol about to make it look like a Peterson fight. Make it look like see, everybody saying that. I just don't think that he gonna run through Danny Garcia and stop him like that. It might be a similar style fight, but I think that Danny Garcia is gonna, be able to stay in there for the 12 rounds. I might be wrong. I hope he do get, but I'm going to tell y'all like this. Don't get it twisted. I hope he go in there and beat the dog shit out of Danny Garcia. Excuse me. I hope he go in there and beat the dog shit out of Danny Garcia. Just for the fact that Danny Garcia was ducking him all them years and then talking shit. Like, if you going to duck a man, well, duck him and keep your name out of his mouth. But don't duck the man and then every time you get on camera, you talk shit about the man. That's just like a motherfucker, you know what I'm saying, talking big shit over the phone, and then when you see him, he run from you. I hate that type of shit. Keep that same energy. Let me see. Jay Cooley says, we don't know if Bud good or not. Well, see, what Jay Cooley whole thing is Jay Cooley is a resume guy like me. What he's saying is like, how you know he good when he ain't never fought the best guys? How do you know how he's gonna respond when he gets in there in the ring with the top guys? So I feel what you're saying. I feel what you're saying. Matthew Valentine says same thing they say about Tank. Stephen Pope says it's two alpha males in the ring going for real. Mark Holly off in the building. What's good with you, fam? How you been, Mark? Let's go ahead and let's get into it, right? Let's go ahead and before I even get into the next subject, Danny Garcia also he said that Danny Garcia says that he has this fight against Errol Spence and one more fight, and he's gonna be moving up to 154-pound weight division. He says he's going to junior middleweight. He said he's going to the junior middleweight division at 154. He said he only got this fight and one more fight left, and he going to 154. He says so. He says that he still want his get back against Keith Thurman and Sean Porter. He said, but won't they just do it at 154? He said, won't they do it at 154? So yeah, he kind of called out Keith Thurman and Sean Porter. He said that after the Spence fight, he want to fight them at 154. So now with me, him going up to 154, it's some killers at 154. In the 154-pound weight division, people can say that weight division could, maybe harder than the 147-pound weight division. It's more killers at 154 than it is at 147, some people will say to you, right? So how do y'all see Danny Garcia doing if he moves up to 154? Because he says that it's always been, his goal to win titles, and he got 40, 47, and 54. I think he said be a 4-weight division champion. He says that was always like one of his goals. He said that he want to move up to 154. He got one more fight left after the Errol Spence fight. So what y'all think about that shit? But see, the thing is, and he talking about he want his get back against Keith Thurman at 154. Keith Thurman recently did an interview, and Keith Thurman said that he don't ever see himself going up to 154. Keith Thurman said that he thinks that he gonna be staying at 147 for the rest of his career. He said he don't want no smoke at 154. Matthew Valentine says Danny can't beat nobody at 154. Well, you mean the top guys. Stephen T. Pope says Rosario might stop Danny. Man, see, I gotta see more of Rosario. You dig what I'm saying? Jason Rosario, he looked real good in the fight with he looked good in the fight with J-Rock. But I gotta see more of him. You know what I'm saying? One fight to me don't define you. I gotta see more of Jason Rosario. Jason Rosario got stopped in the past, so I gotta see more of him. But we really gonna be able to see all of Jason Rosario because now he's had a full fight camp. He and when he goes in to fight Jermell Charlo, that's gonna be a hell of a fight. Let me see what y'all talking about. Jamaican says he might get dog walked or stopped at 54. Stephen Pope says 147 is Thurman's home. Yeah, Thurman. See, that's why a lot of people don't fuck with Thurman because of the whole Errol Spence situation. I like Thurman because Thurman is one of the realest cats in boxing to me. Because Thurman, he says he lets you know straight up. Even in some shit that makes him look bad, he's still going to tell you. Like Thurman don't really hold nothing back. If you ever watch a Keith Thurman interview, I love to hear Keith Thurman in interviews because he don't care about making himself look bad. Like he really don't. He keep it 100. Just like when he told everybody he wasn't going to fight Errol Spence and everybody's mad, he was like, I'm not fighting him. Like that's the fight I'm not taking. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like he real about it. He keep it 100, and so Keith Thurman was, he straight up said, he said, I'm not going to 154. He said, I'm going to try to stay at 147 the rest of my career. I think I can make it. But it is what it is. Brandon House says Rosario had problems with Cota. He says, and Charlo knocked Cota out. Got to put that all into perspective. Exactly. You know what I'm saying, Brandon House? Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You can't really define a fighter off of his one great fight that he had. Now, I know that they were saying that Rosario in the past, he had was taking fights on short notices, so he wasn't able to have a training camp like the rest of these, top level fighters. And that could be it too. But now he's the champion. Now he could really, have a great training camp. He could do, the same things. He gets the same amenities that these top level fighters get now that he's the champion. So that's why I said we have to wait until Rosario fights Charlo, and then we're going to be able to see who Rosario really is. We're going to be able to see who he really is when he fights Charlo. Steven says, I think Thurman, he says, I think Thurman too, that Brian Custer podcast was really good with Thurman. Yeah, Thurman, like, whether you hate Thurman or love him, you got to respect him for keeping it real. Like, he keep it 100. You know what I'm saying? If he don't want to fight somebody, he'll tell you. If he want to fight somebody, he'll tell you. If he not doing something, like, he keep it 100. He even straight up said, like, hey, I'm not going to sit up here and lie and tell you that I stay shape all year round or when I'm out of camp. He said, I don't even train until it's time. He said it straight up. He was like, I don't even stay in shape when I don't have a fight up. And you can see that. You can see it. He says, I've never been the one that likes to stay in shape, just stay in shape. He says, I ain't never been the one that like to just go in the gym and train when I don't have a fight, on the horizon. He kept it 100. He says, but he said he gonna try to switch things up now. He says because he's always been the type of fighter that was able to go in the gym and just go super extra hard, cut weight quick, and just go super extra hard in a short period of time. Because he ain't never been a fight. Some fighters like Gary Russell Jr. We getting ready to cook on the Gary Russell situation. Some fighters, they gym rats. They stay in there and they continue to get better and better and polish their skills. Some fighters, they don't like to go to the gym unless they got a fight coming up. Tank Davis, he don't be in the gym. So let's go ahead and, like I said, hit my like button and share this to your boxing groups, while we get into this next subject, right? We gonna cook on my man Gary Russell. I put the video for y'all. If y'all didn't see the video, go to my YouTube on Everything Boxing and Sports on YouTube and check out the video I put up with Gary Russell. Gary Russell is talking that shit. Gary Russell, he's still on Terence Crawford's helmet. And Gary Russell said, he said straight up, like, where you at, Bud? He said, Bud has been missing in action. Bud turned into a ghost. He said they got an Amber Alert out for Bud Crawford ever since he sent Bud Crawford a contract. Ever since he started talking about, like, okay, let's stop talking on the internet and let's really make a fight happen between us. He said ever since then, Bud Crawford ain't been nowhere to be found. He said Bud Crawford was talking a whole lot of shit, responding to everything when he let the news out how he punched Bud Crawford in his mouth. He said, but ever since then, now shit getting real. Now shit didn't got real. Contracts is on the table. He said now Bud Crawford is hiding. They had to put a whole Amber Alert out on Bud Crawford and still ain't found him. That's what Gary Russell's saying. Gary Russell is still on Bud's head. Gary Russell, he said that Bud Crawford, he said he always knew that, but he said Bud Crawford's a bitch. This ain't what I'm saying. So don't try to flip this shit and like, oh, everything Boxing was on there talking bad about. No, I'm telling y'all what Gary Russell was saying. He's saying that that Bud Crawford is a straight bitch. That's what he's saying. He's saying that, he's saying that let's show everybody what would have really happened if you had tried to fight back. And then he goes on to tell another story because Gary Russell says that he hadn't really watched the whole video that Bud Crawford did a couple weeks ago when Bud Crawford responded to Gary Russell and, told Gary Russell that he'll choke him out, right? Gary Russell didn't take too kindly, he didn't like that shit. Gary Russell, obviously, he didn't like Bud Crawford telling him that he'll choke him out. He says that he hadn't watched the whole video up until recently. He says now that he heard that Terence Crawford said that he gonna choke him out, he was like, shawty. He was like, come on, Slim. He said, you's a bitch, Slim. Let me tell you what happened. You know what I'm saying, Slim? Since you want to talk, let me tell you, Slim, shawty. See, shawty a real bitch. Let me tell you what happened with shawty back in 2007. So he says that back in 2007, he says they was at an amateur tournament. He says that his brother was fighting. Gary Russell said his brother was fighting, and he said Terence Crawford was with a couple other fighters, a couple of his partners, at the tournament. And he says that he overheard Terence Crawford and his homeboy saying some shit, right? While his brother was in the ring, right? Like, basically clowning or whatever. So he said he turned around like, what's up? Like, what y'all talking about? What y'all say? And he said they got quiet and they like, nah, we wasn't talking about you. Like, we wasn't talking about y'all. We talking about something else. So he said he like, all right, bet, right? So he said, so later on, fight still going on. He said he overheard Terence Crawford like some like, oh yeah, I'll beat his brother ass or something like that. So he said he pushed up on Terence Crawford, right? This is what Gary Russell said. He said he pushes up on Terence Crawford. And he like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's up? You got something to say? Any of y'all got something to say? Say something. What you got to say? Say one more thing. This is what Gary Russell saying. He said he pushed up on Terence Crawford and his homeboy and dared either one of them to say anything out their mouth. He says at this point in time, he says he was fighting Gary Russell was fighting in the amateurs. He says he was fighting at like 116. And he says at that point in time, Terence Crawford was fighting at 132. So this is still, Terence Crawford is still bigger than Gary Russell back then. And he said he checked Terence Crawford. And he said he dared Terence Crawford to say anything else out of his mouth. And he said Terence Crawford got real quiet. He said Terence Crawford was just looking and wouldn't say nothing else. So basically what he's saying is he been punking Terence Crawford way back then, and he's still punking him to this day. That's what he's saying. This is what Gary Russell Jr. saying. Gary Russell Jr. continues to put out videos. He continued to call Terence Crawford all types of bitches, right? And he continued to say that Terence Crawford is hiding. He putting pressure on Terence Crawford. So I'm here. I'm just a messenger. All right. I'm just a messenger. So what y'all feel about this whole situation? And he goes on to say that any fans that's on here talking about that he's clout chasing, right? He says, y'all are all bitches to have a mentality like that. He says, all y'all got beta male mentalities. He says, ain't none of y'all got alpha male mentalities if you think that he's clout chasing just because he wants to fight the best and he's calling out the best and he wants to test himself against the best fighters in boxing. And I feel him. You can't say the man is clout chasing if he really out there calling these guys out and they really sending contracts. If he want to fight the best, you can't shit on the man for wanting to fight the best. That's what you want to see. Now, whether you think that he could beat Terence Crawford or not, that's a whole different situation. But at least he's trying. That's all I got to say on that situation. At least he's trying. And he really about what he's talking about. He's just not talking like Danny Garcia. Like we was talking about Danny Garcia earlier, right? How Danny Garcia was talking all that shit in the past about Errol Spence, but every time it was brought up fighting him, he didn't want to fight him. So Gary Russell doing the opposite. He talking the talk and he really trying to make these fights happen. So, you can't say that he's just clout chasing. You got to respect him, whether you think that he'll get whooped by Terence Crawford or not. You got to respect it. So, what do y'all feel about this whole situation with Gary Russell? And he goes on, he says that Terence Crawford, like, What you hiding for? I know you're not going to do nothing but go and fight another bum. He said, whoever you going to fight, whatever bum you going to fight, I'm better than him anyway, so won't you fight me? You're not finna do nothing but go and find another bum to fight. Gary Russell, he talking a lot of shit. So what y'all think about this situation, with Gary Russell? Let me see. Let me scroll down through y'all comments. Hold on. Hey, Shawty, he said, Slim. Hey, Shawty, I knew you was a bitch, Shawty. I knew you was a bitch from Jump Street, Slim. Hey, check it out, Slim. Hey, but Gary Russell be talking that shit. He be talking that shit. Do y'all think that if Gary Russell had been this vocal throughout his whole career and, used, these social media platforms to his advantage like he's doing now, do you think that Gary Russell would be a way bigger superstar than he is right now? That's a good question. Do you think if Gary Russell had, because he's always kept this same type of energy, if you go do your research on Gary Russell, he's always had the same type of energy. He just hasn't always been in the front of the camera like that. Do you think if Gary Russell had to use these social media platforms like he's doing now, and speaking loud like he's doing now, throughout his whole career, do you think that he'll be a much bigger star than he is? What y'all think about that? Kwame East says, I believe him and I feel like that build up lead to the sucker punch. He says, hey, yeah. So this is the thing. You can't just say it was a sucker punch because first of all, we wasn't there. And then both of these men is fighters. If you go up in another man's face and you woofing like that, it's not a sucker punch, right? It ain't a sucker punch. So I feel Gary Russell when he like, what y'all talking about a sucker punch? That man was in my space. He woofing in my face and I took off on him. That's not a sucker punch. A sucker punch is if somebody sneak you from the side and you don't see it coming, or somebody come up on you, and that's a sucker punch. Or y'all just having like a regular conversation, y'all everything cool, and the motherfuckers just haul off and steal on you. That's a sucker punch. But if somebody up in your face talking that loud shit, you gotta be ready to get to swing or get swung on. So it wasn't no sucker punch. Black Star Sports TV says Gary sent an offer, but ain't respond. Fact, bottom line, that's real. G May says a smaller guy called Errol. He says a smaller guy called Errol out, and EJ fought him. He says I'm gonna give Bud full credit for this. Plus, Gary has been extra disrespectful. Spade to spade. Exactly. G Mays, that's what I was saying yesterday. I said at this point it's personal. They both let it be known that it's personal. So you gotta call, you gotta take that fade. You gotta take that call out. Stephen T. Pope says, I heard from one of the Crawfords that Bud was getting ready to hurt him and he was held back and they sent Bud back home. He says that's why Bud never went to the Olympics. Well, I don't know if that's why he never went to Olympics. I don't know if he would have hurt him, but I mean, I heard that they held him back, but we can't say that, Bud was getting ready to hurt him, because if they held him back, the fight never, they never got to smoke with each other. Gary got off and Bud Crawford never got his chance to get back off, right? So we don't know what would have happened. We could speculate and say what we think would have happened, but we can't say that he was getting ready to hurt him. Of course, Bud Crawford's people gonna say, oh yeah, Bud was getting ready to hurt him. That's what they supposed to say. That's, that's his people. I don't know what would have happened. We have to see what would have happened at that point in time. It's a street fight, Don't act like Gary Russell has a fighting background, not just boxing, So, I mean, I don't know what would have happened. Stephen Coney says, Bud need to fight Gary. He do. If he don't get to fight with Kell Brook or Manny Pacquiao, he need to go fight Gary. Brandon House says, I hope Crawford takes he said, I hope Crawford takes so people can compare Errol versus Mikey fight to Crawford versus Russell. Oh, okay. He said he hoped Crawford take that fight so they could compare the two fights. I feel you. I feel you. That's a good assessment, Brandon, for real. And I think I said something like that yesterday. Yeah, protect yourself at all times. You feel me? If you come up in motherfucking face talking that shit and he's still off on you, you can't say that he sucker punched you. You got to be prepared for anything that go on after that because you the one that came up in that man's face. So that's just what it is. But yeah, it's this whole situation is getting sticky. You know what I'm saying? It's getting more sticky each day that passes. You dig what I'm saying? This whole situation is getting more sticky each day that passes because we all see Gary Russell is not letting up off the gas. He's not letting up off the gas at all. So I think that he gotta give Gary Russell that smoke. Whether it's, right now, whether it's after he fight, his neck, he got to answer that call. Straight up and down. Gary Russell saying he'll go all the way up to 147. It ain't no way that you can't answer that call. You got to at this point in time. Jupiter B, what's good? Off in the building. Late, but he off in the building. What's good with you, homie? Yeah, so furthermore, we like I was talking about yesterday, again, it's more talks that Bud Crawford and Kell Brook are in negotiations. This is what Eddie Hearn is saying. He's saying that they in negotiations. He's saying that, but this is like I said yesterday, this is the funny thing, right? This is the funny thing. You saying that Bud Crawford and Kell Brook are in negotiations. You saying that it's a difficult negotiation, but they trying to get everything done. He says it's difficult because both of these fighters want a whole lot of money. This is what Eddie Hearn is saying. He says it's difficult because both of these fighters want a lot of money, right? Right. And you said that, Keith Thurman, he absolutely wasn't going to fight Keith Thurman because Keith Thurman was asking for a lot of money, right? But then in the same sentence, you turn around and say that you guys are negotiating to make the Kell Brook fight with him because he want to fight Kell Brook if he can't get the Pacquiao fight, right? You negotiate for that fight, but it's hard because both fighters want a whole lot of money. So what does that make sense? So you saying both fighters want a whole lot of money, but if you do the math, Keith Thurman is a much bigger fight than Kell Brook. So I don't understand how over there on Top Rank side, it's okay to negotiate with Kell Brook, that's his own promoter, saying that he wants a lot of money, right? But it's not okay to negotiate with Keith Thurman because he wants a lot of money. I don't understand. But one fighter is not even a popular fighter at all in the U.S. And then the other fighter is a very popular fighter, whether you have it in the U.S. or the U.K. Right? I mean, but of course they wouldn't bring two American fighters to the U.K. But I'm just saying, the U.K. fans are going to tap in to watch Keith Thurman, right? The U.S. fans are going to tap in to watch Keith Thurman fight Bud Crawford, right? But most of the U.S. fans are not going to tap in to watch Kell Brook. Kell Brook is not a big name over here. So that don't make no sense to me if what you guys are saying is all of these fighters are asking for a lot of money, but somehow you feel more comfortable with paying Kell Brook a lot of money and not paying Keith Thurman and making a fight with Kell Brook but not Keith Thurman. I'm having a hard time making that make sense. And then you saying that Keith Thurman asked for 10 mil, but you just brush that shit off and you're not even willing to negotiate and meet Keith Thurman somewhere. but you're in deep negotiations with Kell Brook, right? I don't understand that. And then on the other hand, right, Eddie Hearn is talking about the fight being over there in the UK, talking about it'll be great for the UK fans. It's a great fight in the UK, right? But when Terence Crawford spoke about the fight, right, in the past, not too long ago, Terence Crawford said, I'm not going over there to the UK. I'm the A side. He got to come over here and fight me. So all of this don't make sense to me. I mean, but it does make sense if you want to add another layer to it. Could it be that you know that Kell Brook is an easier fight than Keith Thurman? Is that what it is? Kell Brook is an easier opponent for you to beat than Keith Thurman? That's what some might say. I don't know. I'm not Bud Crawford. I'm not Bob Arum. I'm not Eddie. I don't know. But you know, I'm just putting it out there. What is it? All I know is it don't make sense at the end of the day to me, right? And then you got Gary Russell calling you out, and Gary Russell ain't gonna ask for no 10 mil. So what is it? Jupiter B said he ain't getting no notification. Yeah, man, YouTube be on that bullshit, man. Let me see. Let me see what y'all talking about. Jupiter B says exactly. Only willing to negotiate with one dude and not the other. Yeah, it just don't make no sense to me, but it make a lot of sense if you add that other layer to it. Silver 2011 says Kell gave Spence's toughest fight. Yeah, we all know that. I mean, well, arguably we could say that Sean Porter gave him a tougher fight. Sean Porter lasted all 12 rounds. Kell Brook didn't. I think that the Sean Porter fight was a much harder fight than the Kell Brook fight, actually, to tell you the truth. I think that at that point in time, people were just so fucking in awe with the Kell Brook fight, seeing anybody land anything on Errol Spence at that point in time, you know. I think they put a little bit too much sauce on that Kell Brook fight, because if you go back and watch the fight closely, a lot of the shit that the crowd was oohing and on, that shit wasn't landing, and then he did some good work, but you know, the fight, Kell Brook was not winning that fight like a lot of people say, you know, through 6 rounds. He wasn't winning that fight. Kwame E says, thank you. Another top ranked smoke screen. Like EJ said, smoke and mirrors, more bad business. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. Leon Robinson, what's good with it? Salute. G May says Bud versus Gary would sell. Yeah, because you got everybody. You basically, because of Gary Russell, everybody want to see what Gary Russell can do moving up, and then everybody want to see all that shit that Gary Russell been you know, talking. Everybody want to see it. Gary Russell making the fight big, you know, on his own account. Jay Cooley says Kell is washed up. Mr. Rez Jay says big money for Kell might be 2 or 3 mil, not 10. We don't know that though. That's not, like, you know what I'm saying? We don't know that because Eddie Hearn didn't clarify that. He didn't say that. He just says out of those 3 fighters, all of them are asking for a lot of money. So we can only go off what we know. We don't know. But like I said, why are you able to negotiate with Kell Brook, but you're not even willing to negotiate with 10 mil, right? You always gonna throw it in as a fighter. If you work at a pawn shop, whatever the fuck it is, you always gonna throw the highest number out there. You're not gonna, if you keep Thurman, you're not gonna throw the lowest number you think you might get out there. Why would you do that? Then all they gonna do is try to bargain you down lower than that number. You feel me? So that's not how negotiations work. At least sit down with the table and say, hey, look, we can't pay you 10 mil now because of this, and that, right? But let's come and we want this fight as bad as you want this fight, and let's sit down and let's try to make this fight happen. and let's see what we can get on the back end. Maybe if we could get this fight on pay-per-view. Let's sit down, negotiate, and let's see what we can do. This could be a big fight. Maybe we can't guarantee you 10, but we can guarantee you, 5 mil, and then the rest on the back end. Maybe we can guarantee you 3 mil and give you the rest on the back end, depending on how big the fight is. So let's sit down and let's work it out and let's talk. But they don't want to do that. You know why? Because they don't want the fight. Plain and simple. Period. Jupiter B says Kale bigger and heavy-handed, so that was the scare factor in that fight. Porter has his best performance to date against Spence, just wasn't enough. Yeah, and that's a fact. Jupiter B, that's a fact. KG Alexander says Crawford should fight the fighters that want to fight him in his level right now. He says that his hit. He put a typo, but he said that's in their prime. He was saying why he hesitating. He's saying that Crawford should fight the fighters that's on his level, that's in their prime right now. Why is he hesitating? I don't know. It's always an excuse, but I don't know. That shit really baffles me because I don't know. Jupiter B says exactly. Always start hard in your aim. Yeah. Why would you say, okay, well, I'll take 1.5 mil to fight Keith Thurman? He throw 1.5 mil out there, then they're gonna try to get him down to 800,000. Like, come on now, of course you start high, and especially you think Keith Thurman, he probably made more than 10 mil coming off the Pacquiao fight, right? So he like if y'all saying Terence Crawford is as big as y'all say he is, and he's the best pound for pound, and he's as big as y'all saying he is, won't y'all, well, come on, what's popping? If he's that big of a fighter, shit, I should be able to get 10 mil for it, or start my negotiations at 10 mil. Lower to the game, Boxing Talk says negotiation 101. Bob already said Heyman pays too much. He says he would rather die than pay a PBC fighter guy. He says what they're used to getting paid. That's why they're ignoring Thurman. Exactly. Another thing, right? It's funny because I hear all of these fans that's actually really casuals, the same fans that be casuals, but like to call somebody like me a casual, right? I hear them when they'll see these PBC fighters fight persons. They're only making 1.5 million. He's only making 1.5 mil. Deontay Wilder only made 2.5 mil to fight Luis Ortiz. You hear that shit all the time in these boxing groups, right? They sound like pure fucking idiots. They sound ignorant as hell, right? When it's been a known fact for the longest time that whatever PBC puts out that these fighters are getting paid, they getting paid way more than that. You know what I'm saying? Off of paper. If you go watch Vlad TV, right? Adrian Brunner did an interview recently on Vlad TV. And Vlad was like, okay, for this fight, then you fought such and such. And then you went and in this fight, you made 2 mil or whatever. And Adrian Brunner was like, that's what it said. Yeah, well, on paper. On paper, I made 2 mil. And Vlad is like, wait, what do you mean by on paper? And AB goes on. He says, man, he said, Al Heyman to kill me if I tell y'all. He said, I can't even say it, but he said, Al Heyman to kill me if I told y'all. But he said, yeah, that's what I made on paper. Yeah, on paper. And so Vlad goes on to, going through different fights. And every time Vlad mentions how much Adrian Brunner got paid, Adrian Brunner laughs it off and say, well, you forgot to say on paper. That's how much I got paid on paper. So basically, I'm saying this to say that what Kwame East is saying is correct. Whatever y'all are running out, you know what I'm saying, in your boxing groups, writing, posting, ha, about, talking about, oh, PBC fighters are not making that much. They ain't, doing this and that. They making way more than what you think they're making. They can't prove it because they only can go by what you see on paper, like Adrian Bronner was saying. But Al Heyman, you know what I'm saying? When the deals is said and done in the back room, Al Heyman is paying these fighters way more than what we see on paper. Way more than what Michael Coppinger is reporting on Twitter and all of that, right? They making way more than that. Stephen T. Pope says Wilder back end was crazy versus Tyson, the Tyson Fury fight. Yeah. They back end money is stupid. Plus, these PBC fighters are getting they getting a portion of the merchandise, the TV money, even if it's not on pay-per-view. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's on regular cable TV or regular network TV. These fighters over there in the PBC getting paid. Look how they living. You think that Jermell and Jamal Charlo would be in them big ass huge mansions driving around in all of them expensive ass cars if they was making 800,000 or six whatever you see on paper, barely touching the M, like Daniel Jacobs was telling them back then. Oh, you ain't even touched the M yet. If they hadn't even never touched the M yet, do you think they would be living like they living? And when they only fighting once or twice a year, think about that. That's how ignorant some of you fans are. Hey, that shit's funny to think about how ignorant some of you fans are. Do you think Deontay Wilder could be riding around like he do in these big ass mansions doing whatever he want to do if that man was only making $2.5 million and only fighting twice a year? If Errol Spence was only fighting once a year and only making, Errol only made $3 million against in the Mikey fight. He only made $3 million. Really? I've heard people say, well, Terence Crawford he's guaranteed 3.5. He makes way more than Errol Spence. Terence Crawford makes way more than Errol Spence. Errol only made $2.3 million in the Mikey. Come on, man. Y'all gotta stop this shit. But y'all will call me a casual boxing fan, but then act like you know everything. Come on now, man. Stop. Y'all need to stop this shit. Leon Robinson's, and you can tell that just by looking at how Charlo spend money. Big facts. Big facts. Jupiter B says that's where Hearn messed up. He thought he was offering them career high paydays, and PBC laughed in his face. For real, they Adrian Bronner told you, like, this man tried to offer me a contract for this, and he said I've been making that shit. He was like, I was making that shit way back when I fought Paulie. Like, this dude is funny. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't know what these dudes is actually making, and that's why they hate Al Heyman, because they hear rumors, but they can't prove what these fighters are actually making. They only can go off of what's on paper. But you see, these dudes in the PBC, they all living and eating well. They ain't starving. They not tripping. Look at Danny Garcia. Look how he living. Look at how all of these fighters on the PBC living. Mr. Reyes J says, so you think Thurman is a tougher fight than Kell, even after we seen Pac and Josecito fight? Thurman, I mean, can you sit there and say that was Thurman's best? Thurman, like I said earlier, you got to respect Keith Thurman, because when Keith Thurman does an interview, he keeps it 100, right? That you check his track record, even if it make himself look bad. Keith Thurman told you that he was injured in both of those fights, right? Well, the Josecito Lopez fight, he was coming off an injury and still had a hand injury. He was coming off an elbow injury and still had a hand injury. In the Manny Pacquiao fight, he had a hand injury, and we know he wasn't lying because he had surgery right after the fight, and he's still injured to this day. He couldn't throw. He couldn't throw his right hand like he wanted to in that fight, with full force. So we know that Keith Thurman's not lying because he had surgery. He had to get pins in his hand. So Keith Thurman was not 100%. I think Keith Thurman that's 90%, 95%, or 100%, whatever you want to. If Keith Thurman can go in there and be, healthy, I think that Keith Thurman has proven that he probably can be a tougher fight than Kell Brook, because Kell Brook hasn't really fought nobody since Kell Brook ain't fought nobody in 2 years. I mean, I'm sorry, in almost 4 years. Kell Brook ain't fought nobody in what, 8, 9, 12. So Kell Brook ain't fought nobody in almost 4 years, right? So let's think about that. And when I say nobody, he haven't fought nobody that was worth talking about, right? And he's only fought, twice since the Errol Spence fight? So, I mean, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Kell Brook is washed up until somebody beats him and proves that he's washed up. So, I don't know. You can, take it how you want to. Jupiter B says he ain't never heard a PBC fighter complain about money. And these is just big facts. Brandon House says, of course, it's for tax purposes. He says we write $100 on the back of the car title when we selling it for $5,000. That's real shit. You know what I'm saying? That's real. But guys like Bob Arum, they not in the boxing game to make these fighters rich. Bob Arum or Eddie Hearn, Eddie Hearn, he pay his fighters. I ain't gonna front on him like that. But somebody like Bob Arum, he looking at how his pockets is. Bob Arum is gonna try to get you the lowest amount of money so he can get the highest at the end of the day. That's just what it is. Somebody like Al Heyman is an advisor. He's not a promoter. Al Heyman is an advisor. So his job is to be able to advise you to do the best thing with your finances and to be able to get you the biggest amount on the dollar he can. He's a financial advisor. That's what they're supposed to do. And he's one of the best, if not the best, in all of the entertainment business at doing it. Check his track record. Look at, why you think Drake say, Al Heyman, why you think that Drake say Al Heyman, what he say, Al Heyman signature on all of my checks? Drake told you that. Like, Al Heyman get me these big bucks. Loyal to the Game Boxing Talk says AB said a slave contract that Eddie Hearn offered him. Yeah, that's real shit. Yeah, Al Heyman checks. Cassandra Mason. Brandon House says, look how fast Ruiz Jr. got on when he went to Al. Exactly. When he look how fast, and that's a good point that Brandon House made. Look how fast Andy Ruiz Jr. got on and started making money. Andy Ruiz Jr. was over there with Top Rank struggling. Like he really ain't had nowhere to live. Like he could, you know what I'm saying? He was not living check to check. He was living meal to meal. They said that Andrew Ruiz was doing bad before he went over there with Al. Leon Robinson says the only fighter to talk bad on Al Heyman is Vanes Martirosyan. Yep. And saw how he came back on his knees with tears in his eyes begging. Yeah. Vanes Martirosyan went off and talked bad about Al Heyman, but he quickly came back and was apologizing, talking about how wrong he was, talking about how he wanted to go back to Al Heyman. So you see what it is. You never hear nobody say nothing bad about Al Heyman because he getting them dudes paid at the end of the day. And that's why they all mad at Al. Why you think they sued that man? Because they was crying, talking about, oh, these fighters are not supposed to be making that much. Look how much, why is they paying them, these fighters? Like, you mad? Like, you sued the man trying to say that he was paying his fighters too much. What kind of shit is that? Y'all sitting on the sideline ain't never thrown a punch in your fucking life. These dudes is getting in the ring, risking their life every time they step inside the ropes. And you suing this man talking about he's paying his fighters too much? He's messing up the boxing game because he's paying these fighters too much? Where do they do that at? That shit crazy. Think about that shit. You suing a man because you saying that he's paying his fighters too much. Matthew Valentine says Andrew Ruiz was hungry and homeless. That's real shit. He was doing bad, you know. But with that being said, make sure that everybody hit my like button. Make sure that you go over to YouTube and subscribe to my channel. I appreciate everybody for tuning in once again and coming to fuck with me. Hit the like button. And like I said, if you want to donate to the channel, donate to the Cash App that's scrolling across the screen. I appreciate y'all. I will be back on here. And until next time, y'all already know how I do. Anything ain't everything, but around here, everything boxing. There you go, talking that boxing again. And when next time they ask you, you tell them like this: I don't watch reality TV. I watch boxing. I appreciate y'all. I'm gone.